We got TierZoo, different type of video, low key. We're going over a full crustacean tier list, bro. I can't even imagine what's gonna be S tier, not gonna lie, but I'm very hyped. Let's get it. Mantis shrimp go hard. Not gonna lie.
Crustaceans are
never get over the saxophone. That's why I put it in too, because I was like, out of everything in that video, that was the perfect balance between like really unhinged and just like why, and then also being short enough to fit the clip in the intro. Because there was other ones that I could have put in, but I feel like that one, like you can get that instantly, you know? It's just, it's great, bro. It's actually great. Cause like, why would you do that to a saxophone, bro? That's just
some of the most
devious
popular builds in the entire game. In fact, they're so popular that it's become sort of a meme that every player will eventually drop their current character and switch to being a crab main. But just how competitively viable are crustaceans really? Which unique abilities does the crustacean class make use of that enabled them to become such a resilient force across so many of the game's expansions and balance patches? And are they actually an optimal build choice in the current meta? Or are they just an easy-to-pilot, low-skill floor character? We'll discuss all this and more as we rank the most notable builds on the crustacean tier.
Pre-W. Who y'all got for S tier?
Before we get into the tier list, let's first discuss the crustacean.
As a whole, there's a goal. My bad.
The abilities they use to accomplish it.
Dude, that made me kind of want to add a leave me canceled what's it called, bro, command, but I feel like you don't do that often enough to warrant that. But if there was one, that would be one, bro. Not gonna lie. Hey, W gift sub, bruh.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
Appreciate that, bruh. W gift sub.
Crustaceans are part of the larger faction of arthropods, and so crustaceans inherit all the main perks.
Timing.
The most important one, of course, is their exoskeleton, which provides a huge defense boost. Given that most crustaceans have to contend with some of the most dangerous builds in the game, this extra protection is crucial to their viability. Their carapace, which is the thickest, sturdiest, and most important link in their armor, block attacks from seabird beaks, fish jaws, and many of the other threats common in aquatic environments.
Okay.
It does, however, have the same weakness as all exoskeleton-type builds, which is that their defense stat drops drastically for a short time when leveling up. If their armor ever does fail them, this doesn't immediately mean game over. Crustaceans have the incredible ability to
oh my god, I just processed what I saw. Did bro just pop out of the packaging?
If their armor ever does fail them, this doesn't immediately mean game over. Crustaceans have the incredible
Bro died and came back like Lil Uzi. I can't
fail them. This doesn't immediately mean game
That's
over.
hard though.
Crustaceans have the incredible ability to regenerate HP after taking damage, even being able to regrow entire limbs. So even something as devastating as losing a claw or a leg isn't something crustaceans can't recover.
Bro did not just amputate himself into the pan.
Even being able to
rip me out the plastic. Nah, bruh, nah. Why did I not think of that? Oh my god, I should have thought of that.
So even something as devastating.
But this right here, bro. You telling me a shrimp fried this rice?
As losing a claw or a leg isn't something crustaceans can't recover from. And in fact, can be the optimal play to distract an opponent and escape a fight. This ability makes crustaceans a very beginner-friendly build, as you can make a lot of mistakes and still progress through your playthrough relatively unhindered. Crustaceans also have uniquely specialized limbs that come to 2 points rather than 1.
Big meaty claws.
Stack them into various different specialized opposable claws, which can be optimized for slicing, crushing, piercing, or grappling.
Real.
I've said in the past that I think crustaceans are a broadly mid-tier class. And I think this still holds up.
Cost me an arm and a leg.
Crustaceans have a lot of interesting tools at their disposal, but due to their middle-of-the-road stat spread, they are constantly fighting an uphill battle against the many high-tier threats they need to contend with, and have to play things perfectly to not get run over in these matchups.
Fair.
So, let's see how the individual crustacean
Fair, bro.
fare and get into the tier list.
Barnacle, okay.
Starting us off in F tier, we have the Barnacle. The Barnacle is a crustacean build with an almost completely AFK strategy. As a barnacle larva, you find a spot and then attach to it and filter feed for the rest of your playthrough.
Bruh.
I'm not dunking on players who enjoy idle games. I'm a fan myself. However,
Real.
this strategy does have some major flaws. Despite the fact that barnacles have the highest defense stat of any crustacean, the survivability of a barnacle is entirely contingent on their choice of parking space. Barnacles can attach to just about any surface, from ship holes to cement walls, to whales and even other crustaceans. Choosing a spot on a non-living surface leaves the barnacle vulnerable to predators. As high as their defense stat may be, there are plenty of builds that are willing to invest in anti-shell defense abilities, like
Makes
the acidic
sense.
attacks of the starfish or
Yikes.
the drilling attacks of the whelk snail,
Yikes.
neither of which are uncommon on the reefs and coastlines that barnacles call home. But if they opt for a living host, which is easier said than done by the way, then their survivability is completely tied to the survival of their host, a tenuous
Fair.
gambit in a metagame as hostile as the ocean server. Whales are a pretty safe choice, but opportunities to secure real estate on a whale are few and far between. Much more likely you'll need to settle for property on the shell of another crustacean, which, as we'll see later on this list, is quite a gamble.
Yikes.
Personally, I'd say
Yo,
if
that
you
guy's
want to
content's
play
great,
mostly
bruh.
AFK
There was this one time, it sounded like he said the N-word, and he didn't realize that. And then the next video, bro was like shaking. It was hilarious,
which,
bro.
as we'll see later on this list, is quite a gamble. Personally, I'd say if you want to play a mostly AFK marine build, opt for the scallop, as you'll still get to chill and filter feed most of the time, but can still escape if need be. Also in F tier, we have the shrimp. Now, shrimp are a super diverse group with a ton of interesting strategies.
Fair bottom tier.
But in general, shrimp make very poor use of the crustacean build's unique abilities.
Yep.
Broadly speaking, shrimp have weak legs, no eye stalks, and
Yep.
small claws.
Yep.
No eye stalks might seem trivial, but eye stalks are actually a
I get that barnacle from Pro Snows always made me cringe. Same.
Sand or under.
Same, bro. That was one of the few episodes that I was like, why did they have to animate that? You know? Like, that one should have stayed in the vault.
The seabed,
To be
while
honest.
still remaining vigilant.
That should have stayed in the vault.
Rely heavily on that same strategy, but because they cannot surveil their surroundings while hiding,
It's really just that one, the one where Squidward gets that chair on his foot. We know what happens after. And then there was another one that was just like really, really weird. I can't think of it right now. But I know there's one more. That's like really
wait
bad.
until they resurface and pick them off. Attacking a shrimp is also a lot less risky than attacking most crustaceans, as their damage-dealing abilities are far worse than the rest of the faction. The shrimp's scaled-down appendages are a trade-off meant to buff its mobility. Shrimps inspect into shorter, flatter legs that increase their aquatic movement speed in a way somewhat reminiscent of a fish's pelvic fins. This is an idea that means shrimp can freely swim rather than walking along the ocean.
Suds wasn't that
In
bad.
practice, this kind of just meant that
That wasn't
shrimp
that
ended up
bad.
as the seahorses of the crustacean faction.
Honestly, the one where like SpongeBob and them turn into snails was kind of weird. It wasn't that like weird looking, but it was just odd.
Tankier, but
Like that was one of the
still
first like SpongeBob episodes that like felt weird, you know?
that can't adequately defend itself or evade attacks, so it gets bullied by every other nearby player. Shrimp do have one escapability, in that they can very quickly dash backwards. But this is of course very predictable and exploitable by experienced players. Now,
Real.
it's important to note that while they may not have the best stats, crafty shrimp mains have been able to reach some level of viability in the meta, either by speccing into debuff cleansing abilities and playing as a predator support class, or by using a quirk of the game engine which allows them to fire off powerful short-range sonic projectiles called cavitation bubbles that can stun other players. These are both respectable strategies that merit higher tier placement, but as a whole, shrimp are stuck in the bottom tier.
Oh.
First in D tier, we've got the
Isopods.
isopod. Other than the barnacle, which literally cannot move, the isopod has the highest base defense stat of any crustacean on this
We're
list.
just like a sea roach, bro.
For deflecting attacks, and when they curl into a ball like an armadillo, there are very few predators that can threaten them, unless they're several orders of magnitude larger outright.
Oh, that's hard.
The isopod has essentially no damage-dealing ability.
I know they did that.
It has no attacks, no poison, nothing to threaten aggressive players with, and so against a persistent attacker, it will essentially always lose. Isopods are a diverse and widely distributed group, with both terrestrial and aquatic
I
variants.
watched a video of isopods eating Jello the other. Was it Jello? No, I think I almost clicked on that one. It was something. I watched a video of isopods eating something.
The terrestrial
It was very
variants,
odd.
known as wood lice,
I don't know why I watched it.
roly-polies, function very similarly to miniature cockroaches, using their flat shape to wedge themselves into hard-to-reach positions, and only leaving the safety of these places
Gross.
in order to scavenge for loot. The
There's
larger
what Tom Kenny, when SpongeBob becomes a snail, he was doing an impression of SpongeBob doing an impression of Gary. He's really him for real. Bruh, Tom Kenny, like, bro, one of the best voice actors ever, bruh. Like, can't lie. Can't lie. I never really thought about it that way, but that's real.
of the isopod
That's real, bruh.
are usually similar in their strategy, but can also opt for a parasitic playstyle, where they actually fuse with a fish player, destroying and replacing the fish's tongue. This parasitic strategy is great for farming XP and is super AFK, but does come with pretty much all the same risks I mentioned about the barnacle. If the fish gets attacked and defeated, the isopod usually goes down with the ship. Technically, if given the chance, they could detach and escape, but in the marine meta, chances like that are quite rare, and without a host, they're likely to just get picked off anyway. Not the worst crustacean, but it's leaving a lot on the table not making use of the crustacean's highly customizable forelimbs.
Okay.
Next in
crayfish,
we have the crayfish, also known as the crawdad. This is a smaller variant of the lobster subclass, which mainly sticks to freshwater servers. This means that unlike the lobster, which needs to be prepared to contend with the likes of sharks, octopus, eels, and the multitude of dangerous threats you'd find in the ocean servers, the worst things a crayfish might run into would probably be something like a turtle or largemouth bass. And yet, even in this much less punishing environment, crayfish still underperform. They have solid matchups against frogs, which is true of essentially every other build in existence as well.
Low key, bro. Frogs are bottom tier. If frogs are your favorite animal, you need help. And I'm talking to Piri and Tommy, specifically. I love y'all music, but bro.
Against freshwater fish,
they're bottom tier.
But pretty much anything beyond that, and they begin to struggle. They don't have claws that are anywhere near as powerful as some of the other crustaceans on this list, and so when confronted with an adversary, they often lose if they can't escape. Their only real advantage is that their smaller size opens up a lot of additional options to where they can run for cover and hide, as they can fit into very small openings between rocks and debris on a riverbed. However, because they often aggregate so close to the shoreline, they're vulnerable to being picked off by birds, whose pinpoint precision strikes can hit them even in partial cover. Without proper offensive capabilities, they'll always find themselves outclassed by their more powerful relative. A build which I think we've name-dropped enough times already to just go ahead and move on to.
Hey, don't tell me these are D tier.
We have the lobster.
Oh, C tier, okay.
Lobsters are a solid marine tier build with lots of strengths, the most obvious of which is their incredibly large and powerful claws, which grant the lobster one of the highest grip strengths in the entire game, able to easily crush through the defenses of just about any other player, and inflict devastating damage in the process. This is excellent for defense, and also for taking control of an objective.
They play these in schools now? Honestly, I don't think yet. But in another, 4 years, 5 years, probably, yeah. Because there's already some Gen Z teachers now, but most of them are teaching, the younger grades, pre-K, kindergarten, first grade. I feel like there aren't too many Gen Z, 5th grade teachers yet, or, high school teachers at all. But it'll happen, for sure. And I think TierZoo is definitely going to be one of those channels that ends up just, being played in school, which is pretty cool to think about. Honestly.
Similar to shrimp, lobsters also have fairly decent mobility, although the only direction they can move quickly is directly backwards. This is all quite solid, however, the lobster does have its own share of weaknesses in addition to the standard crustacean weaknesses. This backward mobility is fairly limiting, and means that attacking a lobster from behind often leaves them with very little counterplay options, as their claws cannot reach backwards, and if they try to use their mobility option, their only choice will be to move directly towards you, unless they slowly position themselves, so that their back faces away from the threat.
Yikes.
Now, this is in contrast to the next build on our list, which I think is a bit more versatile in its mobility. Next in C tier, we finally arrived at the crab build.
Here we go.
The poster child for the Crustacean class, and one of the most reliable and consistent mid-tiers in the entire game. Crab claws are extremely customizable, able to be optimized for whatever best suits the current meta. Some spec into smaller, more precise claws that enable to capture small prey more easily. Some spec into sharp-edged claws used for slashing at soft-bodied opponents, and some opt for pointed claws, perfect for jabbing at pesky fish who can't mind their business. What really sets crabs apart from other crustaceans is that they've opted not to spec into the pleon trait. The pleon is the rear abdomen seen on most other crustaceans so far. It's the tail part which allows shrimp and lobsters to use that special burst mobility option. The trade-off, though, is that the pleon vastly increases their hurt box and functions as a weak point. In order to have the flexibility required to give them that quick movement,
Xbox is crazy.
As heavily armored.
Xbox is crazy, bro.
So, while crayfish, shrimp, and lobsters fold pretty quickly when being attacked from behind, crabs can usually just shrug it off. However, just because they can't dash backward instantly like other crustaceans can, doesn't mean crabs are immobile. Instead, crabs focus on lateral mobility, which turns out is often much more useful for dodging attacks. They can quickly swim or dash to the left or right when needed. And although this might not be as impressive as the lobster's dash, it's still often enough to save their life anyway. Now, I don't want to give you the impression that I think crabs are at all over.
Didn't I literally play this video on stream like a month ago?
It was great, bro. Plenty, especially by builds that spec into high intelligence. But the strategy that goes into optimizing your character's hurt box is not something I think we should overlook, as that actually is a pretty high level play.
Definitely B tier.
First in B tier, we have now
deserved
basic crabs. Hermit crabs do have a pleon, which they need to protect by scavenging and equipping the shell of a defeated snail player. Technically, this means they aren't true crabs. But what really matters is that this ability is busted. It allows them to match the defense stat of the barnacle while retaining their ability to move. And
crazy.
On top of all that, the shells themselves can be augmented with extra perks, courtesy of sea anemone players. In this combo, hermit crabs can add a toxic sting to their defense too. I won't spend too much time on hermit crabs because
it really should be, and I think it kind of is. There's definitely a lot of random, but the funny part is they're all old videos. I feel like I never see any videos like that were made recently. They're all like 10 plus years old. Literally.
Just understand that they've turned the main weakness of the false crab crustaceans into a major strength. The largest variant of the hermit crab, the coconut crab, can actually reach such giant sizes that it surpasses the need for a protective shell, since there's essentially nothing that's able to threaten it. And by dropping the heavy shell, they gain the ability to climb, which can allow them to even turn the tables on bird mains.
Yo!
Impressive matchup against crustaceans.
Crazy, bro.
Next in B tier, we have the copepod. Now, this may seem like a weird inclusion on this tier, as I usually don't discuss builds from the microbe weight class, but copepods really do deserve a mention, as they pretty much have the entire zooplankton metagame on lock. They're one of the most numerous builds in the entire game, and can survive almost any
holographic meatloaf again.
Elemental resistance. They're almost like water bears in a way, except in addition to being quite durable, they're also easily the most mobile of all plankton builds. Most other zooplankton only start out in that weight class, using their microscopic size to avoid detection from larger predators. However, as they level up, they increase in size and phase out of the planktonic metagame entirely. However, while in their planktonic stage, they're usually not super competitive, as they've spent all of their evolution points on abilities that they only unlock later on. Copepods, on the other hand, are fully optimized to max out their viability against other zooplankton, and thus completely dominate the meta in that space. They're not completely invincible, of course, and do often get taken down by colonial microbes, such as the Portuguese man-o'-war and its relatives. But among free-roaming zooplankton, copepods reign pretty much uncontested in their niche. This is especially...
I always want to try a kelp shake, bruh. Them kelp shakes, they had them... Just don't even like meatloaf. Yeah, I don't like meatloaf either at all. But the holographic meatloaf, I think I just like the novelty of that one. Like, it would be cool to eat something and not have to like physically eat it. you know, which that's something I didn't understand why it was holographic as a kid, but plankton just don't eat like regular food. So it's like they don't have to eat. So that's why he was eating holographic meatloaf instead of just actual meatloaf. And also why he doesn't know that chum isn't appealing, because like he doesn't eat. It's crazy, bruh.
Copepods also ally with Vibrio bacteria to gain the bioluminescence ability, but can also transmit the deadly disease cholera.
Yikes.
And
get mantis shrimp
list in A tier. Mantis shrimp.
It's good, Jay.
The mantis shrimp is famously one of the most stacked builds the game has ever seen, at least when it comes to offense. Instead of the standard crustacean grappling claws, mantis shrimp opt for either raptorial blades or bludgeoning clubs, which they can swing with
crazy
unparalleled strength. These attacks deal devastating damage to any player unlucky enough to be caught on the receiving end. And in many cases, these attacks result in a one-hit kill. Now, the mantis shrimp has a lot of hype and attention surrounding it, with a lot of players
good, Carl.
mantis shrimp as OP and broken and so on. The hype around its power stat is absolutely deserved. However, we can't forget that this build has a body plan roughly similar to the build that I've rated second lowest on this tier list. Their large, less heavily armored Pleon sticks out quite far from their carapace, which can leave them vulnerable to ambush attacks, just like a regular shrimp or lobster, which is not an uncommon occurrence given their lack of camouflage.
Fair.
In addition, their small fins and small legs don't exactly translate to a high mobility stat, which is why, despite the fact that
that's just an iPhone, I think honestly, man, is really, for me, it comes down to just UI preference. Honestly, like iPhones are cool. They are overhyped. They're definitely overpriced, but it really just comes down to UI. Me personally, I hate the UI of Samsung phones, so I stick with iPhone. But you know, it's really just personal preference, to be honest.
Usually only hunt the absolute slowest of prey, clams, scallops, and snails. This isn't a bad thing at all. In fact, I think the existence of a proper tank buster build is healthy for the overall metagame. But I do think the power of the mantis shrimp gets exaggerated a lot on forums and discussion boards. Abilities like being able to see color and polarize light in a unique way, or the bonus sonic damage effect their punches create, these are fun little quirks, but I don't think they significantly affect the mantis shrimp's place on the tier list. Running legs and the ability to breathe on dry land, and we'd probably need to start discussing a ban though. Overall, crustaceans are in a solid spot in the current meta. Not overpowered, but not to be underestimated either. Crustaceans and insects are closely related, and are the most successful factions within the arthropod class. So it's only natural that they constantly be compared against each other. Insects are far more dominant on land.
Extra limb.
Crustaceans
like extra arm or an extra leg?
Though they're similar in many ways, insects have a lot of unique abilities that crustaceans do not, such as venom, eusociality, and most importantly, flight. Meanwhile, most of the important abilities we see in crustaceans are also found in the insect faction. Sturdy defensive armor, the ability to equip shells of defeated tanks.
Okay, it was 12. Move it 2. iPhone's cheaper. That's real. That's probably a valid switch. And the camera on the iPhone 15 I've seen is really, really good. So, because I was even saying the other day, Android's low-key got it when it comes to cameras. They got it. But honestly, man, you might have to, might have to make that switch, bro, to be honest. Less noticeable arms or legs. I feel like you could get away with another arm, but it would have to be small though. Like it couldn't be a full size other arm. It would definitely have to be like a really tiny arm, or like, and then you could just get it anywhere. Like you have like a little arm on your back, that could be interesting maybe. I don't know.
Quick burst mobility, regenerating limbs.
And I feel like another leg just wouldn't be very like useful, like I don't really see how 3 would be better than 2. But if it was 4, now it's a different story. But just 1 more, I don't know.
Insects can do too. I will give credit where it's due.
Yeah, space is definitely important too.
When it comes to that regen perk I mentioned.
They're probably similar
Insects
though.
Can regenerate every time they molt, but
like 256.
Stop molting once they reach their level cap and can no longer regenerate after that. This coincides with insects getting their wings, which is kind of paradoxical because it means their most fragile feature is also the only feature they can never regenerate. Crustaceans, by contrast, continue to molt and regenerate even after reaching their full potential, reinforcing the idea that crustaceans are a more beginner-friendly build. Crustaceans are arthropods, one of the most diverse factions in the game. And while many are important parts of their ecosystems, many others, including the copepods mentioned in this video, can carry diseases. These diseases can devastate communities that don't have the infrastructure to prevent them. And unfortunately, these same communities are often the ones least equipped to fight off these same diseases.
Pre-ad?
It's the season of giving, and if you're anything like me, you want to help, but worry that your donations could go much further and do a lot more good if used in the most efficient way. This is where today's sponsor...
Hey, W-ad, bro. Love to see it, man. Love to see it, bro. Hey, man, W tier list. Really love to see it. I'm not surprised at all that the mentorship was A tier. None of them made it to S tier. I didn't really think so. But, you know, it's sort of surprising, I guess.